Everybody talks about becoming a millionaire. You see it on personal finance book covers, YouTube thumbnails, investment videos, retirement articles, and almost every conversation about building wealth. $1 million has become this magical number that people treat like the finish line of personal finance. It sounds clean. It sounds powerful. It sounds like the point where everything finally changes. And to be clear, having $1 million is a great goal. Nobody is saying it is meaningless. But the truth is, your financial life does not suddenly transform the day your net worth crosses that $1 million line. The real changes usually happen much earlier. There are three net worth milestones that can completely change the way you think about money, the way your investments grow, and the amount of freedom you feel in your everyday life. The first one proves you have discipline. The second one gives your money real momentum. And the third one can start giving you options that most people never seriously imagine. So let's start with the first milestone. And it is not $1 million. It is $10,000. The first milestone that really matters is $10,000. This is the point where money starts to show you something important about yourself. It shows that you can make a plan, stay consistent, and actually follow through long enough to see results. Getting to $10,000 is not easy for most people. It requires discipline. It requires saying no to things. It requires choosing your future over the small temptations that show up every single day. And if you are investing, this is also where compounding begins to work in your favor. Let's say you invest $100 a month into an investment account, and that account earns an average stock market return of 8%. At that pace, it would take you about 6.5 years to reach the $10,000 mark. But here is the part that can feel a little disappointing at first. By the time you reach $10,000, your own contributions would make up about $7,800 of that amount. The interest would only make up the rest. So you might look at that and think, is this really worth it? I put in most of the money myself. This whole compound interest thing does not feel that exciting yet. Maybe I should just keep my money in a bank account. But that is where most people misunderstand what is really happening. Because once that first $10,000 is invested, it can keep growing even if you never add another penny. If you left that $10,000 invested for another 6.5 years, it could earn about $6,591 in interest. That is roughly $1,000 a year in money you did not have to physically work for. And if you let that same $10,000 sit for 25 years without adding anything else, it could grow to around $69,538. Most of that would be interest, not your original money. But the $10,000 milestone is not only about the math. A huge part of it is psychological. When you see 5 figures in your account for the first time, something changes. You are no longer just hoping that you can become good with money. You now have proof. You have evidence that you can control your spending, save consistently, and stay committed long enough to build something real. Most people live with a quiet financial stress in the background of their lives. They may not talk about it. They may not even notice it every day. But it is there. They are one bad week, one surprise bill, or one difficult month away from falling behind. They hesitate before making purchases. They worry when an unexpected expense shows up. Money becomes a constant source of pressure, even when they are trying to ignore it. But when you reach $10,000, that pressure begins to loosen. First, you gain peace of mind because you know you are not just scraping by anymore. You can breathe a little easier. You can start thinking beyond survival and begin focusing on bigger financial goals. Second, you can cover most of life's emergencies. A surprise car repair, a medical bill, a broken appliance, or a temporary loss of income may still be stressful, but it does not have to completely destroy you. And third, the mental barrier is broken. Once you prove to yourself that you can reach $10,000, $100,000 no longer feels impossible. It feels far away, yes, but not unrealistic. At that point, the only things standing between you and the next milestone are time, consistency, and continued contributions. So here's the question. If $10,000 can already change how you feel about money, what happens when that number becomes 100,000? The second milestone where life really starts to change is $100,000. This is the point where your money begins to make money in a way that you can actually feel. Before this, investing can feel slow. It can feel like you are doing everything right, but the results are barely showing up. You are saving, investing, staying disciplined, and still the growth may not look that impressive. But at $100,000, the scale changes. If you have $100,000 invested and it earns a 10% return in 1 year, that is $10,000 in investment growth. Now compare that to having only $100 invested. A 10% return on $100 is just $10. $10 is not nothing, but most people can earn $10 by doing some kind of small task or working for a short period of time. $10,000 is different. Most people cannot easily earn an extra $10,000 just by doing a simple job for an hour or two. That is why people say it takes money to make money. The more capital you have, the more powerful each percentage point becomes. $100,000 is not enough to retire on, but it creates momentum. It starts accelerating your net worth in a way that the first $10,000 simply cannot. Here is the example. If you invest $10,000 per year into the stock market and earn a 7% return every year, your first $100,000 would take about 7.84 years to reach, but the second $100,000 would take about 5.1 years. The third would take about 3.78 years, and later going from $900,000 to $1 million could take only about 1.35 years. That is because your existing money is doing more of the work for you. And this is what makes wealth building so difficult in the beginning. You can be making the right decisions, investing consistently, and still feel like nothing is happening. Personal finance requires you to keep showing up long before the results become obvious. It is not like golf where you hit the ball and immediately see where it goes. With investing, there is a long delay between what you do today and the dream result you eventually want. But if you understand the math, you understand why the early years matter so much. Before we move to the third milestone, it is worth asking a very practical question. How do you actually get to your first $100,000 faster? If you use an investment calculator, a realistic but still optimistic goal might be to reach your first $100,000 within 6 to 8 years, or sooner if your income and savings rate are strong. In the earlier example, investing $10,000 per year at a 7% annual return would get you to $100,000 in about 7 to 84 years. That means you would need to invest around $833 per month. For many people, that number can feel intimidating, but this is where employer contributions can make a major difference. In the United States, many people have access to employer-sponsored retirement plans like a 401k. If you contribute $500 a month to your retirement account, your employer may match another $500. Suddenly, your total monthly investment is $1,000, even though only half of it came directly from your paycheck. That is one of the easiest ways to increase your investment contributions without relying only on your own savings. And this idea does not only apply in the United States. Other countries have similar retirement systems. Canada and Australia have versions that often include employer contributions, and in the United Kingdom, employees can pay into pension programs where employers may contribute as well. So if you are trying to increase your contributions, one of the first places to look is your company's payroll or benefits department. Find out what programs are available. Find out whether your employer offers a match. Find out whether you are leaving free money on the table. Another way to reach $100,000 faster is to increase your income. Of course, that is easier said than done, but in the early stage of building wealth, every extra dollar you can invest matters. That could mean taking classes, earning certifications, starting a small side hustle, or doing freelance work that brings in an extra $50 to $100 per week. It may not sound like much, but when that extra money is invested consistently, especially early on, it helps get the compounding process moving faster. The third milestone, and the one most people do not think about enough, is $500,000. Most people jump straight from $100,000 to talking about $1 million. But $500,000 is a massive financial and psychological turning point. At this level, your portfolio starts doing serious heavy lifting because of its size. For example, if you have $500,000 invested and it earns an average return of 8%, That is $40,000 in growth in a single year. That is not a small number. In many parts of the world, $40,000 is a full-time salary, and your portfolio can generate that without you clocking in, asking for a raise, or working extra hours. If $500,000 stays invested with no additional contributions, it can also grow dramatically over time. After 10 years, it could still become at least $1 million. After 20 years, it could grow to around $2.33 million. That is why $500,000 is not just another number. It is the point where options begin to open up. In America, this milestone is also higher than the average retirement savings balance, which was around $491,000 according to Empower dashboard data. At $500,000 using a 4.7% withdrawal rate, you could withdraw about $23,500 per year. And if you combine that with the average Social Security payment in America, the numbers become more meaningful. For a single person at age 67, full retirement age, that could bring total annual income to about $48,352. For a household where both partners receive the average benefit, that could be about $73,204 per year. The age when you take Social Security matters. If a household starts at 62, the total could be around $58,292 per year. At 67, it could be about $73,204. At 70, it could be just over $85,000. But this milestone is not only powerful for people near retirement. If you reach $500,000 in investments at age 45, you may have the ability to change strategies. You might leave a job you dislike and take a lower-paying job you enjoy more. You might move toward Coastfire, where your retirement account already has enough invested that it can keep compounding in the background for a traditional retirement later. At that point, you only need to earn enough to cover your current lifestyle expenses. Your investments are quietly doing the long-term work. You might even be able to take 6 months or a year off without destroying your overall financial future. That is why $500,000 is really the freedom milestone. It is the option milestone. So if $10,000 gives you confidence, $100,000 gives you momentum, and $500,000 gives you options, what is the real secret connecting all three? And here is the part that most people do not want to hear. There is no new secret that suddenly unlocks at $500,000. There is no hidden strategy that only appears once your portfolio reaches that size. It is simply the natural result of someone who reached $10,000, kept going, reached $100,000, kept going again, and refused to let lifestyle inflation destroy the progress. The same discipline that gets you to $10,000 can get you to $100,000. The same habits that get you to $100,000 can eventually get you to $500,000 and beyond. The numbers change, but the principles do not. You save, you invest, you stay consistent. You give compounding enough time to do its work, and you do not quit just because the early years feel slow. If you can reach $10,000, you have already proven that you can follow a plan. From there, the only thing standing between you and the next milestones is more time, more contributions, and the patience to let your money keep working. That is why these 3 milestones matter so much. $10,000 gives you confidence. $100,000 gives you momentum. $500,000 gives you options. And once you understand that, you stop seeing wealth as one giant, impossible number. You start seeing it as a series of milestones, each one changing your financial life in a different way.